Morning, good evening, and hello everyone. My name is Payal Tandon. I will be your host today, and I welcome everyone to Algebra webinar. So today I have with me Ashutosh Mishra. He's our resident quant expert, so he will also be supporting us in this webinar. Every weekend we conduct these webinars to make sure that you are well prepared for your GMAT. You understand the right strategies to prepare for both verbal and quant. Now, algebra webinar is highly application focused. So in order to make sure that you are ready with the basic conceptual knowledge, we share these videos with you. Quadratic inequalities, absolute equations, linear inequalities in two variables, absolute inequalities. I'd like to understand how many of you have gone through these videos. Tell me how many of you have gone through these videos and have understood the basics of algebra. So I see about half and half. All right. So for those of you who have gone through those videos, thank you very much. I hope that your conceptual clarity is a lot more than what it was before. For those of you who haven't gone through these videos, definitely take a chance to review them after the webinar. These are part of your free trial. So simply log into e-GMAT and you should be able to access these. Now, as I said, every weekend we conduct webinars just to make sure that you are well prepared for your GMAT. Now, next weekend is the only weekend when we don't conduct webinars. That's the only weekend that we take off. So definitely register for the strategy webinar next year, January 4th. So definitely register for that if you are someone who's starting your prep, or if you are someone who's in the middle of the prep and just wants to make sure, am I headed in the right direction? So Rajat is going to walk you through how is it that you create your personalized study plan in order to make sure that you maximize your potential. So register for that one. So January 5th on Sunday, we'll be conducting a quant workshop in which you will get to understand what your current level in quant is. Are you good with concepts? Are you good with process skills? So if you want that precise feedback, and that kind of feedback not even a single mock provides today. So definitely register for that quant workshop. All right. So when do you plan to take the GMAT? This would give me an idea about where is it that you are at in terms of the entire class. So I see that there are two big segments. I would say the largest segment is taking the test beyond 75 days. So I'm guessing that you're just starting off and you are figuring out, okay, how is it that I should be preparing and whatnot. So you are at the right place, because if you're starting off, you will actually be able to tweak your processes, your approach towards GMAT in the right direction right up front. So good job. I mean, good decision to be attending this session. For those of you whose test is within the next 15 days, you're also at the right place, because again, it's an application focused session. So we are going to be taking your conceptual understanding and giving you feedback on whether are you able to apply your conceptual understanding in the right manner or not. And again, for those of you who are taking the test between 15 to 75 days, again, you would be able to understand where is it that you need to focus your energy on. So once again, welcome everyone. I am going to change the presentation layout. So it is going to take a couple of seconds for the layout to stabilize at your end. So when you start to see algebra or purpose of the session on your screen, and the screen is still stabilizing at my end, as soon as you start to see purpose of the session on the screen, please press yes. Okay, sounds good. All right, so the purpose of this session is really, as I said, it's an application focused session. So I will not be teaching you the concepts, that's for sure, and that's the reason why we shared these concept files with you before the webinar. So I assume that you have the basic understanding of how is it that you should solve a quadratic inequality, how is it that you should be solving linear inequality and whatnot. But I will be giving you feedback on your conceptual understanding. Okay. Now, what we are going to be talking about is really focusing a whole lot on is what is the process that you should be using to solve questions, and I'll be giving you feedback on your process acumen, and you will be able to get a number of key takeaways from each of the questions that we solve. So there's going to be quite a bit of learning, and I do want you to be ready with your pen and paper and be open to taking the feedback, be open to figuring out, okay, this is my weak area, I need to focus on that. Okay, now how are we going to do this session? As I said, these are the concepts that we're going to be covering. We are going to give you 6 warm-up questions. These are easy questions. The whole purpose of these questions is to give you feedback on your conceptual understanding, and also, a little bit on your application understanding, and I'll walk you through that. Then we're going to be applying these concepts on difficult GMAT questions. We are going to be giving you 6 problem-solving questions and 3 data sufficiency questions. So in a way, you're going to be applying your conceptual and application-focused, your application skills on these questions. So we're going to get started with the warm-up section. But before we do that, I want to understand, what is your current quant score, right? What's your target quant score right now? Just want to understand what people in this session are targeting. All right, so I see that more than 50% of the class is targeting a Q50. Okay, all right. All right, sounds good. Now let's get to know what is your current quant score. All right, so current quant score, the largest segment is between 41 and 45. Then another segment, the next largest segment is, I would say, equally split between Q30 and Q46 and 48. That's the equally sized segment. All right. Okay. Now, for people whose current score is below Q40, this session may be a little bit more advanced for you, but I would still want you to stick around in this session. Why? Because, and I don't want you to get demotivated. Why is that? Because again, you will be able to pick out on a number of key takeaways that are going to help you streamline your preparation. Okay, so for people whose current score is below Q40, I want you to be part of this session. Why? Because I want you to pick out on the right aspects of quant, so that you can make sure that you're preparing in the right manner. For those of you whose current score is above 41, I would think that yes, you have certain conceptual gaps for sure, and algebra could be one of those. Certain topics in algebra could be part of those gaps. So again, figure out, you would really benefit a whole lot from the process skills standpoint, the process skills that we will be discussing. Okay. All right. Now I want to understand, let's talk about specifically about algebra. What is your current comfort level in algebra? Okay. The largest segment here is 80% comfortable in algebra, and then I have similar, less than 70% is similar here. Okay, all right, sounds good. All right. One more question before I go ahead. What stops you from getting a good quant score today? And this is always a very interesting poll. So 30% of the class is saying conceptual gaps. Another 32% of the class is saying timed aspect of the test. Then there are some people who are scared about with the DS, concerned about DS, and then there are some people who are not sure. Okay. All right. Now, frankly speaking, timed aspect of the test should not play a role here at all. If it is indeed timed aspect of the test, if you've selected that choice, that means that you are not doing the correct attribution. Okay, and I'll ask this question again towards the end of the session, when after you would have solved these many questions, and then I'm going to ask you, okay, what is that one thing which is stopping you from getting that good quant score? Okay, all right, so thank you very much for responding here. Now let's get into our warm-up section. I'm going to be asking you basic algebra questions, and I hope that everyone has a pen and a paper ready. So here's your first question, and let me get the poll. Okay, everyone please click on still solving. That way I know how many people are engaged with this question, and then you can select your appropriate choice. All right, go ahead and solve it. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. And I'm going to give you the next question. Can you please click on still solving? All right, here's question number 2. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. And here comes question number 3. Please click on still solving. All right, here's question number 3. All right, last few seconds. You guys are taking really long on this question. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. All right, so we're going to discuss these first three questions here. So question number 1, the correct answer is choice B, and about 75% of the class selected this choice. So there are few people who could not solve this question. There are few people who marked choice A as the correct answer, and that is wrong. So let me walk you through how you should have solved this question. Again, it's a basic inequalities question. You move minus y to the left side, you get 5y plus 10 is greater than 0. You move 10 to the other side, you get 5y is greater than minus 10, and then you divide both sides by 5 and you get y is greater than minus 2. So it's as simple as that. So for those of you who did not select choice B, or who could not solve the question, again, my feedback to you is that you need to build on your basics for solving inequalities. This is as simple as it gets. Okay, so definitely watch the concept file which we had shared with you, which is part of your free trial. Okay, now let's look at question number 2 here. Question number 2, the correct answer is choice B, and again, the accuracy for this question has reduced. It is less than the accuracy for the previous one. Only 65% of the class could get this question correct. Now in this you have a system of 2 linear inequalities and 2 variables. So whenever you have that, you have to eliminate certain variables, right? So what we are doing is we are bringing both the inequalities in the same form. We are adding these inequalities. We can add them because they both have the same sign, greater than. And then we see that 2x and minus 2x cancel out. What we get is y is greater than minus 2. So for those of you who could not solve the inequalities, who could not solve this and who selected the wrong answer, again, you need to build on your basics for how is it that you should be solving inequalities. Okay, so you are not comfortable with solving a system of linear inequalities. So again, my feedback to you is build on your basics, and again, you will be able to do that if you spend 15 to 30 minutes on those concept files that we have shared with you. Okay, on each file that we have shared with you. All right. Okay, let's look at question number 3. Now this is where the application starts to happen. When I say application, the first two questions were simply basics. How is it that you solve a system of linear inequalities, right? Now in question number 3, there is some application there is an aspect of, are you applying the right process skills? Obviously you need to know the concept, but beyond that, are you applying certain process skills? So let's go through this. So how many non-negative integral values? So what we have over here is non-negative integral values of m does the two given inequalities satisfy? So we have to figure out, we have to first find the range of m, and then we need to figure out how many non-negative integral values exist. Okay. All right, now we add both the inequalities, and then what we get is minus 4m is greater than minus 10. Now this is where your conceptual understanding with regards to inequalities kicks in. Now when I say minus 4m is greater than minus 10, can I simply say that m is greater than 10 by 4? That is what I'm doing, is I'm cancelling out the negative sign from both the sides. Can I simply do that? And let me get a poll here. All right, so tell me, can I simply do that? No, I cannot. Why? Because whenever I multiply both sides of the inequality with a negative number, the sign of the inequality changes. Okay, so that is a process step which you needed to understand. That conceptual understanding needs to be there. Okay, that whenever you multiply both sides by -1, the sign of the inequality changes. Here it's greater than, and here it has become less than. Okay, which means that what you get is m is less than 10 by 4, which means that the possible non-negative integral values are 0, 1 and 2. Okay, and this is where students who selected, and let me get this part here, students who selected choice B as the correct answer, you most likely would have solved the question correctly till this point, but you did not consider the constraint. Okay, and that is a process skill which you failed to apply. You did not consider the constraint that what the question is asking you is non-negative integral values, which means it's not talking about positive, just positive, it's saying non-negative. Okay, if the question were how many positive integral values, then the correct answer would have been 2, because 0 is not a positive number, but 0 is a non-negative number. Okay, so that conceptual understanding needs to be there in terms of what is 0 considered as, and the other thing is that conceptual understanding you need to apply correctly when you're solving questions. Okay, and that is where we get into process skills. Okay, now I have a question in the Q&A part. 0 is neither positive nor negative. Absolutely, 0 is neither positive nor negative, but 0 is non-negative. Okay, and that's the conceptual understanding that you need to have. Okay, all right. So non-negative is different from positive. Okay, all right. So for those of you who answered this question correctly, okay, tell me. So for those of you who answered this question incorrectly, tell me what was the mistake that you did, and I'm going to ask you about certain mistakes. So first, tell me, how many of you made the mistake of not changing the sign of the inequality when you multiplied it by -1? Tell me that. How many of you made the mistake of not changing the sign of the inequality? So if you made that mistake, then you press yes. If you did not make that mistake, then you press no. So about 46% of the class made that mistake. So I want you to make a note of that in your notes right now, that whenever you multiply both sides of the inequality with -1, you have to change the sign of the inequality. You simply cannot cancel out the negative signs. Okay, that's one thing. Second, how many of you made the mistake of not considering 0 as a non-negative integer? Okay, so more than half of the class. So I want you to make a note in your notes that 0 is a non-negative integer. Okay, very, very important. Now again, I'm going to repeat myself here. If the question asked how many positive integral values, then the correct answer would have been 2, because 0 is not a positive number. But because the question is saying how many non-negative, and non-negative does not mean positive. Okay, so I want you to make sure that you have that level of clarity. Okay, all right, so let's now get into the next question here, the next series of warm-up questions, and we are going to change the tone here. We are going to move from linear to quadratic inequalities. So please click on still solving. All right, here you go. All right, last 5 seconds. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. Can you please click on still solving? This is for question number 5. Good, there you go. Okay, last few seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. And here comes question number 6. Please press still solving. Okay. Oh, we are first discussing the first these questions. So question number 6 is going to come at the end. All right, so let's talk about question number 4. Okay, so question number 4, let me bring the poll back for this question. So about 54% of the class selected the right answer, but you guys took quite a bit of time to solve this question. So that tells me that you're not very comfortable with solving quadratic inequalities. And let me get this feedback from you. How many of you are comfortable solving quadratic inequalities? And that actually, I mean, I can understand that, and I could tell that because you guys took quite a bit of time to solve this question. So again, as I said, I'm not going to be teaching you the concept here, but I'll just give you a high-level idea about it. But definitely, I urge all of you to go through the concept files that are part of your free trial. And if you are e-GMAT students, then definitely spend the time on the algebra module. So basically, what we do in quadratic inequalities is, if you consider, I mean, if you go by the very basic of it, the fundamental principle behind it, consider x minus 2 into x minus 3 as product of two numbers. And then consider what is the inequality telling you. That product of two numbers is greater than 0. Now, in what cases is the product of two numbers greater than 0? Either both the numbers are positive or both the numbers are negative, right? So that is the principle that you apply over here to find out the range of x in which this inequality is greater than 0. This product is greater than 0, right? So when you do that, what you get is x minus 2 is greater than 0, x minus 3 is greater than 0. If you combine the two, what you get is that x is greater than 3. Okay, so you are combining the information from here and you are arriving at that x is greater than 3. Okay, now you do the same thing for x minus 2 and x minus 3 are negative, right? So you combine these two and what you get is, if x has to be less than 2 and x has to be less than 3, then if you're combining them, what you get is that x is less than 2. Because for all values x is less than 2, x will definitely be less than 3. Okay, so that is what you are doing over here when you're solving this quadratic inequality, and when you combine both, what you get is the range that has been specified over here, this range over here. Okay, and again, if you understand this range, it is simply that x is anywhere from 3 all the way to plus infinity, and x is anywhere from minus infinity to 2. Okay, now this is the method which is a very fundamental method, right? Now you can apply this, you can take this fundamental method and get and utilize another corollary of this method, which is called the wavy line approach. And again, I'm just going to be walking you through this wavy line method. When you go through the concept file, you will have the details of the wavy line method in the concept file as well. Okay, so over here you plot the two roots on your x-axis, and what are the two roots? X is equal to 2 and x is equal to 3, right? You plot those two on your x-axis, and then you draw a curve going like this. Okay, you draw a curve that goes like this. Okay, and then based on whether your answer, whether the value is positive or negative, you basically then figure anything above the x-axis is going to be positive, anything below the x-axis is going to be negative. So if your inequality is greater than 0, that means this is your range and this is your range. If your inequality were less than 0, then this would have been your answer. Okay, so again, this is nothing but a corollary of the fundamental method that we used in the previous slide. So this is a quick way of doing things, but again, you need to understand the fundamental method before you start to understand the corollary here. Okay, so you can use either of the two methods. Okay, so again, for those of you who are not as yet certain about, who are not very comfortable with how to solve quadratic inequalities, you'll have to just go through this session right now and then take the feedback from me here that you need to spend the time on learning the concepts after this session, and you have the tools to do that. Okay, all right, so now let's take up question number 5. Now question number 5, my first question to you would be that, can you simply change this question or can you simply solve this question by saying, okay, x minus 3 divided by x plus 4 is less than 0. I can multiply both sides by x plus 4, and what I get is x minus 3 is less than 0. Can you do that? And why can you not do that? Why can you not do that? Because we don't know the sign of x plus 4, and again, this is where your application of the concept comes into play here. X plus 4 could be a negative number, and when you multiply both sides of the inequality with a negative number, the sign of the inequality changes. So we don't know if x plus 4 is positive or if x plus 4 is negative, right? And that's the reason why we cannot multiply both sides of the inequality with x plus 4, okay? Because if x plus 4 were negative, then my resultant inequality will be greater than 0 here. If x plus 4 was positive, then the resultant inequality will be less than 0, okay? So that is the reason why you cannot multiply both sides of the inequality with x plus 4 and get x minus 3 is less than 0. Now, but how do you solve this further? Now, the way to solve this is, what if I multiply both sides of the inequality with x plus 4 whole square? Why can I do that? Because x plus 4 whole square is always a positive number. Okay, right? X plus 4 whole square is always a positive number. Now, when I multiply both sides of the inequality with x plus 4 whole square, x plus 4 in the denominator gets cancelled out, and what I end up getting is a simple quadratic inequality. And over here, I have demonstrated the method for, I've demonstrated the wavy line method, x plus 4 into x minus 3 plus minus 4 is one of the roots, the other root is 3. Then you draw the wavy line, and what you need is less than 0, which means this is the segment which is applicable. That means this is the correct answer. Choice C is the correct answer. Okay. Now, how many of you, okay, let me get the poll here. Question number 5. Now, 62% of the class selected the right answer, but there are quite a few who were not able to solve this question, quite a few who selected the wrong answers. So tell me, what was the mistake that you did? What mistake did you do? And again, that's very, very important to understand why is it that you faltered. Lost in the question, okay? So most likely you're not comfortable with quadratic inequalities, and that's why you weren't able to solve it. And again, what I want you all to understand is, and again, we have to learn from each other here, right? If you are not clear with the concepts, then it's going to be hard for you to solve questions. Okay, so concepts are the most important thing. Okay, that's why I definitely want you guys to spend that time. You spend, there are 4 concept files, you spend 2 hours on them, you will be able to understand those concepts. Okay, secondly, once you know the concepts, then again, having the right approach is very important. Now in this question, even if you, there were 2 very important things. One was that, do you know how to solve quadratic inequalities? Second is, you look at this expression, this inequality here, and you don't know how is it that I should be simplifying this inequality, because this is not the kind of inequality that you know how to solve. We know how to solve linear inequalities, we know how to solve quadratic inequalities, but we haven't really dealt with fractions here, right? So again, you have to have that skill set to take an inequality and then get it in the form that you are more familiar with solving. Okay, so that is called as simplification. Okay, or well, I would say that's called as visualization. Can you visualize how to solve this inequality, how to bring this inequality in more known form that you know how to solve? Okay, that's a process skill. Okay, so again, your concept of how do you solve quadratic inequalities is important. Your process skill of how do you visualize this inequality in the form of the inequalities that you are familiar with. Okay, both of those are important, and then obviously you need to apply the concept of that if you can't multiply both sides of the inequality with a number without knowing what the sign of that number is. Okay, all right. Got it right. So I have a question here. Got it right, but did an elimination approach by using replacing x with values. That is not the right approach. Okay, you will definitely falter. If you didn't falter in this question, you will definitely end up faltering in some other question. So again, please utilize the right approach. So I want you to get that approach right. Now, for those of you who answered this question correctly but didn't use the approach that you see on the screen, I want you guys to work on utilizing the right approach. Okay, and this is very important when you're solving questions on your own. Just don't review the solutions of the questions that you get wrong. Okay, definitely review the questions of the solutions of the questions that you get right as well, so that you make sure that you solve them utilizing the right process. Okay. All right, now this one is the last warm-up question, and then we'll go into more difficult ones. So let's get question number 6 here. Yeah, go ahead. All right, last few seconds. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. So this is absolute value inequalities. The correct answer is choice C, which about 60% of the class selected. Again, over here, all we are doing is I'm going to show you the basic way of solving this question. X plus 3 is equal to Z. You assume that. What you get is the mod of Z is less than or equal to 5. And now you translate that on a number line. So what you get is that mod of Z could be any number from 0 to 5 or from 0 to minus 5 for it to be less than or equal to 5. Okay, and you get this inequality, and then you replace back Z as x plus 3. You subtract 3 from both sides. What you get is minus 8 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 2. Okay, so that's what your answer is. Again, very basic absolute value inequality. And again, here there are other ways to visualize the same. Okay, so again, the key thing over here is through these 6 questions spanning linear inequalities, quadratic inequalities, and absolute value inequalities, what we've done is we have identified where all you have gaps, where all you have conceptual gaps, and in some cases we were also able to identify certain process gaps. So I want you to take that feedback and make sure that you implement the corrective actions based on that feedback. Okay, so let me ask you now, how many questions did you get correct here? How many questions were you able to answer correctly for the right reasons? Now, even if you, let's say, got a question correct, but that was by fluke or by utilizing some other method which is not very scalable, then I want you to not consider that question as correct. So I see here that there are some of you who were able to get all the 6 questions correct. There are few of you who were not. Okay, so again, I want each one of you to take feedback that is personalized to you and make sure that you implement the corrective actions. Okay, now let me ask you, what are the takeaways that you have taken? What feedback have you taken right now based on these 6 questions? Conceptual gaps. What kind of conceptual gaps? Good. 0 is a non-negative integer. Wavy line method is wonderful. Inequalities suck. Okay. No idea about wavy line method. All right, that's fine. So you need to build upon that. Okay. And that brings me to my next slide here, wherein this is the link which I will be sharing with you in the PDF. So definitely go through the concept files first, and then go through this article which we wrote for GMAT Club. So definitely first go through the concept file, because there we are teaching you the basics of wavy line method. Then in this article over here, we take that to a step further. Okay, so the link, let me see if I can give you the link from here. I will share the link with you through the Q&A pod, but you can get this in the PDF as well, that I'll share with you towards the end of this session. Okay, well, I have the link here. Let me share that with you here. All right, so I just shared the link with everyone, and I will add this link here also. All right. Okay, so all right, so now let's go into our GMAT style questions. These are easier ones, and then we'll move on to the difficult ones also. Okay. There's somebody asking me about, please share the concept files too. Again, the concept files are part of your free trial. So simply log into e-GMAT.com and you should be able to access the free trial files. Okay. So you not only have algebra files, you also have number properties files as well as verbal files there. Okay. All right. So let's get into our 700 level questions now. But before I do that, just tell me, how is the session going so far? And let me get I'm going to get you a poll here. How's the session going so far? Okay. Good. You guys are people of few words here. Very stressful, got a long way to go, slightly too slow. I understand, for some of you who are already at a certain level, this may be a little bit slow, but again, that's why I have to pace it based on the composition of the class. In some of the sessions when I conducted, I mean, we have already way past the warm-up sessions, the warm-up questions, but again, that's why I asked that question as to where you guys are at. Now, again, I would say, as I said earlier, don't take stress off it. Utilize this as a learning opportunity to figure out where the gaps are, so that you take that feedback and make sure that you implement the feedback in the right manner. Okay. All right. So now let's go into this next set of questions here. Mark your answer. This is the first question in this session, in this section here. And please click on still solving. All right, go ahead. All right, I'm going to end the poll. Last 5 seconds. All right. So 64% of the class got the question correct. Now, in this question, we have been given linear inequality in one variable, and we need to find a range of x. So we need to solve for this, right? Now, if you look at it, there is no constraint specified on x. All it says is find the range of x. And I want you to focus very, very much on the fact that I'm identifying the constraint. I'm noting down, I'm looking for constraints in the original sentence here, okay, in the question statement, okay. Now, I simply rearrange the terms. I bring the terms related to x on one side. Now, this is where I need to apply my conceptual understanding. If I multiply both sides of the inequality with -1, the sign of the inequality will change, right? So what I end up getting is x is less than -2, okay? And choice C is the correct answer. For those of you who selected choices A and B, you faltered at this step, okay? So I want you to make sure, I want you to note this concept down very, very clearly, okay? All right. Let's now move on to our next question here. And this question, so you need clear this. What is the minimum value of the, can you please click on still solving here? What is the minimum value of integer x if these two inequalities hold true and the first inequality is same as the previous, the inequality in the previous questions? Okay, so you can use that same solution. It's exactly the same as the previous one. Okay, go ahead. All right, I see still 33% of the class has to put in the responses, so let's get to solve the question quickly now. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Now, for those of you who selected choices A and B, okay, for actually those of you who selected choice A, and that is 19 of you selected choice A, I want you to focus on this thing over here, minimum value of the integer x, and then tell me, is minus 5.5 an integer? Is minus 5.5 an integer? No. So why did you select choice A as the correct answer then? If minus 5.5 is not an integer, then why did you select choice A as the correct answer? Didn't read slowly enough. Absolutely. Now, my next question to you is, okay, now for those of you who are saying that you missed the word integer or this was a silly mistake, I don't want you to consider this as a silly mistake. Okay, this is one of the 5 key process skills. You have to understand, you have to identify the constraints, right? Remember, in the last question I wrote down constraint as a specific thing. Okay, you have to always make sure applying constraint is a very important process skill. Okay, so you always have to figure out what are the constraints that have been put in by the question statement, and in some cases there are constraints put in by the concepts themselves. Okay, so again, very important. Now, how many of you maintain error logs? How many of you maintain error logs? Okay, so for those of you, and not that many people maintain error logs. Error logs are very important, so I do want you guys to start maintaining error logs. Now, for those of you who do maintain error logs, how many of you will categorize this question, this question as a silly mistake? How many of you will write silly mistake for this question? Okay, I want that to change. I want you to take this feedback from me that whenever there is nothing like silly mistake, okay, considering minus 5.5 as a silly mistake here it implies that you're not going to do anything about it. Okay, the correct feedback that you have to put in your error log is that you were not able to identify the constraint, so that next time, the next set of questions that you solve, you automatically explicitly look for constraints, okay, such that it becomes that second nature to you. Okay, so again, solution of this question is relatively straightforward. The main thing over here was identifying the constraint part. Other than that, it's simple application of the linear inequalities system of linear inequalities. Okay. All right. Let's move on to our next question here. Can you click on still solving, please? Okay. Last few seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. And here again, I'm going to ask you a simple question. For those of you, so already for people who selected choices A, essentially the whole thing is split between choices A and D. Okay, there are some of you who weren't able to solve this question. I'm guessing that you are not very comfortable with quadratic inequality, so that conceptual understanding you anyway need to build. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. That's a feedback that you already have. Now between choices A and D. Look at choice A. What is choice A saying? Choice A is saying that z square is greater than minus 4. So this part of the inequality implies that z square could be minus 3. Z square could be any number between minus 4 and 0 over here. Okay. Now tell me, is there any possible value of z square such that it could be in this range? Yes or no? Yes or no? No. So why did you select that? So for those of you who selected choice A, you did everything right from the standpoint of solving a quadratic inequality. You did everything right, but you didn't focus on the conceptual constraint that z square is a non-negative number. Okay, that is what you did. So again, I'm not going to go through the same. So again, solution is straightforward. The constraint over here, remember what I said? Constraint can be either specifically stated in the question statement, or constraint could be a conceptual constraint. In this case, you know that z square is always a non-negative number. Okay, and again, non-negative, I'm not saying positive, because z square can be equal to 0 as well. Okay. Yes, in GMAT you always consider real numbers. Okay, that's a given. Okay, so that is why you need to have z square plus 4 will always be greater than 0. Okay, so the correct answer here is choice D. Okay, and again you could have solved it with either of the two methods here. All right. Okay, I'm going to question number 4. I need to give you question number 4 now. All right. So again, this will not be a silly mistake. This is a mistake that you didn't look at the constraint here. Okay, that's the mistake that you did. Okay, all right. So now let me give you question number 4 here. I skipped this question. So can you please click on still solving? Question number 4, same inequality. Now what we're asking is, if z is an integer, how many values of z square satisfy this inequality? Go ahead and solve it. All right, last few seconds. Okay, correct answer is choice C, and let's go ahead. Okay, to find the number of values of z square, that's what we need to do, right? Constraint is that z is an integer, okay? So we are simply utilizing the wavy line method. What we get is that since z is an integer, z square could be 0 or 1, okay? So really the correct answer here is 2, okay? And again, you know that z is an integer. You also know that z square, and again z square is less than 2, which implies that z square could be 0 or 1, and you know that z square could be 0 as well. Okay, so that's where you get 2 as the correct answer. Okay, all right, so now let's do a quick overview of questions 1 through 4. For those of you who, again, from if you look at it, here were the constraints that we applied. Okay, this was the sign thing. Okay, this was perfect square is always non-negative. We applied that constraint. Okay, and then we again we utilized methods wherein we simplified the equation to bring it to a known form. We focused on constraints, and again we need to read the question statement properly. Okay, now what are your learnings from this section over here? And let me bring the poll for your takeaways over here. And you can append to your previous answers here. So tell me, what are your learnings from this section? All the numbers in GMAT are real. More streamlined solving, okay. Handling the sign of inequality. There are no silly mistakes. Good, very nice. X square is always non-negative, not positive. It's always non-negative, okay, not just positive. 0 is a non-negative integer, okay. Devil is in the details, yes. How to make an error log? Again, we do have a webinar on error log, and I'll share the link with you on that. We have a specific webinar on, we did a YouTube session on how to create error log for algebra and number properties. So there are 2 different sessions, and I can share the links with you. All right. Okay, so let's now go into our 700 level questions. Here is the first question, and again, as the questions get difficult, you will start to see that the application becomes a little bit more involved. So again, I'm not timing you all, as you would have already noticed. So I just go by when the class has selected the right answer, has made some selection. So again, take your time, read the question very, very carefully when you're solving this, okay? Go ahead. All right, last few seconds. Now I can see that quite a few of you have not been able to make any selection. So tell me, what is so complicated about this question? You guys took really a long time to approach this one. What is difficult about this question? It's taking time, okay. Fixing boundaries for x and y, okay. What else? Solving both variables was only thing, concept was fine, arrow is not on the same side, hard to simplify. Okay, all right. So let's go through this in a step-by-step manner. What do we have? We have two linear inequalities, right? And we need to find the positive difference between the minimum possible value of x and minimum possible value of y. Okay, and we need to find the positive difference between these two. So really we need to find the value, we need to find the range of x and the range of y. Looking at those ranges, we need to find the minimum possible value of x, and we know that x and y are both positive integers, and then we need to find the minimum value of y, and then we need to take the difference, and the difference needs to be positive. Okay, so we know that x and y are positive integers. Now what we do is we bring the inequalities in standard form, and then we solve the inequalities and we find the answer. Now inequality 1 is x plus 2y is greater than 20. In standard form, you bring all the terms on one side, and you have over here we have greater than 0 sign. Inequality 2, and again whenever we have to work on two inequalities, the sign of the inequality needs to be same. Okay, so that's what we do over here. When we bring both the all the variables, all the components on one side, what we end up getting is less than 0 sign. Now this inequality has greater than 0 sign, so what we do is we basically multiply both sides by -1 so that we get greater than 0 sign here as well. Okay, all right, so we do that. Now we have these two inequalities here, right? And now we need to solve them. Now to solve them, one way is, and again you can figure out whether you want to eliminate x or whether you want to eliminate y. In this case we are eliminating x, so we are multiplying inequality 1 by 3, right? So what I end up getting is minus 3x minus y plus 30 is greater than 0. Then I add this inequality and inequality number, this one over here. What I end up getting is 5y minus 30 is greater than 0. Okay, and I get y is greater than 6. Okay, that's what I get. Now I have the range for y. Now I need to find the range for x as well. So now I eliminate y from the two inequalities, and I end up getting x is less than 8. Okay, now how many of you got to this point wherein you got y is greater than 6 and x is less than 8? So half of the class did and the other half didn't. Okay. Now again, it is till this point the question is relatively straightforward. It's your comfort level in solving inequalities that is being tested right now. Now beyond this, what you do is you have the range for y, you have the range for x. Now what do we need? We need minimum possible value of x. Now if x is less than 8, what is the minimum possible value of x? Given that x is a positive integer. So if x is less than 8, what is the minimum possible value of x? Absolutely, it is 1. Okay, x's minimum possible value of x is 1, not 0. It is 1. Okay, and not 7. It is 1. Y is greater than 6, so minimum possible value of y will be 7 here, right? So you have the minimum possible values of x and y, and what you end up getting is 7 minus 1 is equal to 6. The correct answer is 6, which only 40% of the class selected. So tell me, which step of the solution did you falter at? And again, there are multiple faltering points here. One could be that you couldn't solve the two inequalities, which means that you have to, that's a conceptual gap there. You need to get comfortable in solving two linear inequalities. Okay, probably you're not comfortable processing them, you're not comfortable bringing them into standard form. That could be one faltering point. The other faltering point is that, yes, that's a good point here. I was about to say, you plugged in y is equal to 7 to solve for x. You basically, what you did was you figured out, you solved for x from the minimum possible value of y, and that is wrong, because again, and that's where the approach comes in. Do you have a clear idea about the path that you have to follow to solve the question? Okay, so good point, thank you for bringing that up. Okay, the other faltering point could be that you couldn't relate one, even if you got the ranges for x and y, you couldn't translate those ranges into the required thing, that is minimum possible value of x and y. You probably didn't consider the constraints, you just could not translate those two ranges into values. Okay, that could be another way. The other thing could be, if you none of you selected choice A as the correct answer, but if someone did, then obviously you didn't read that the difference is supposed to be positive difference. Okay, all right. Now I have a question here. What time should we take? How much amount of time should we take to solve this question? Again, you should take, I mean, once you are familiar with, once you are ready for the test, it should not take you any more than 2 minutes to solve this question. Okay, and again, notice what I said, once you are ready for the test. Right now you are not ready for the test, you are building your processes, you're building your conceptual understanding. That's why I don't want you to be under any timing constraints, because if you put in timing constraints way early in the process, you end up faltering a whole lot more, because you haven't given yourself the right amount of time to process the information, to learn the skills. Okay, that's why you should not worry about timing right now. What is the level of this question? This is a 700 level question. All right. Okay, now I'm going to skip question number 6. Why? Because given the amount of time that you guys took to solve question number 5, you are going to be really stuck in this question. So I want you all, I will be sharing this PDF with you. I want you all to first build your conceptual understanding, okay, and then come back to this question. Okay, so go through the concept files that are there in your free trial, and then come and solve this question. And the detailed solution of this question is available. Okay, so but if we spend the time right now, you will take upwards of 5 to 6 minutes, and you will not get anywhere in this question. Okay, so yeah, it's a very interesting question, and believe me, once you get comfortable, this requires both solution for linear inequalities and quadratic inequalities. So I want you to be comfortable with both those concepts before you solve this question. Okay, all right, so now let's get into our DS questions, and I'm going to bring the poll. Okay, can you all please click on still solving? Okay, here you go. All right, last few seconds. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. Okay, let's look at this. The question is asking us, is z positive? And what is given to us is that z is an integer and mod of z is less than 6. If mod of z is less than 6, then what all could be the values of z? What all could be the values of z if mod of 6 is less than 6 and if z is an integer? Absolutely, it could go anywhere. It could be minus 5, minus 4, minus 3, minus 2, 0, minus 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Okay, so total of 11 possible values. And what we need to find out is z a positive number, which means that is z anywhere from 1, is z greater than 0? That's what we need to find out, okay? Now, what does statement 1 tell us? Mod of z minus 2 is greater than 3. Now, what we can write this down is, we can write it in terms of inequality as minus 3 is less than z minus 2 less than. Again, this is not correct over here, okay? When you say mod of z minus 2 is greater than 3, you basically visualize this on the number line, okay? And what you're getting is that z is greater than 5 or z is less than minus 1, okay? Now, these are the two possible ranges for z. Now, according to this, z can be both positive or negative, right? If you're solving mod of z minus 2 is greater than 3, what you're getting is z is greater than 5 or z is less than 1, which means that z can be both positive or negative, right? Is that correct? Now this, you will arrive at this conclusion that z can be both negative or positive if you don't consider what the question statement told you. What the question statement said was that z is between minus 6 and 6. Now if you combine this information here, right, now according to this statement what you're saying is z is greater than 5, but you already know that z is less than 6, okay, or z is greater than minus 6, right? Which means that this z is greater than 5 is not a possibility at all, which means that z is definitely less than minus 1, which means that statement 1 is sufficient. How many of you solved statement 1 in this manner? Okay, so statement 1 is sufficient. Okay, all right, now let's look at statement 2. Statement 2 is saying z is plus 2 or minus 2, which means that statement 2 is not sufficient, which means that choice A is the correct answer. Now tell me, where did you falter? Only 4 people selected choice A as the correct answer. So tell me, where did you falter? I'm going to go back to this slide. And the places where you could falter is, first of all, conceptual understanding. You weren't able to translate z minus 2, mod of z minus 2 in this manner. Okay, you may not have been able to translate it into these ranges. That could be the first possible mistake. The second possible mistake could be that you didn't consider that there is already a constraint on z, that is, the question statement tells you that z is less than 6 or z is greater than minus 6. So you didn't consider that. Okay. The third place where you could have made a mistake is that you, so I think those are the two places where you could have made a mistake. Constraint for z. Okay. Level of this question, this is a 700 level question. So again, it's very important to identify, to have that conceptual clarity. How do you solve an absolute value in inequality? And to take the information with you to have the right flow of information. Question statement gave us this information, so we needed to take that with us into statement number 1. Okay, and when you take that with us in statement number 1, we arrive at the fact that statement 1 is sufficient. Okay, all right, now let's solve the next question here, question number 8. Can you please click on still solving? All right, last few seconds. Okay. Let's solve this question now. Is A less than B? That's what we need to figure out. There's nothing else in the question statement. And sometimes the question statement is very light, as in this case. Okay. So all we need to figure out is A less than B? Now we look at statement number 1. Mod of A minus B is equal to B minus A. Now I want you to just look at this equation and conceptualize it. Okay. This is mod of a number, A minus B, right? So what this is saying is that B minus A is equal to mod of some number, and that number could be anything, right? In this case it's A minus B, but that really doesn't matter. All it's saying is that B minus A is equal to mod of a number. Now what do we know about mod of a number? What do we know about mod of a number? Tell me. What do we know about mod of a number in general from your conceptual understanding? Not positive. It is non-negative. And that is a mistake that you guys did. Mod of a number is a non-negative number, which means that mod of if a number is equal to mod, then that means that number is greater than or equal to 0. You needed to consider the equal to sign here. Okay, very, very, very important. Okay, All right, so now with that piece of information, with that conceptualization, what you get is that b minus a is greater than or equal to 0, which means that b is greater than or equal to a, which means that b can be equal to a or b can be greater than a. Okay, which means that we don't have enough, we cannot really say for sure whether a is less than b. Okay, so for those of you who selected choices A and B, you faltered here. You didn't consider that mod of a number is a non-negative number. Okay. Now again, you may just think about this, that okay, this is a very small thing. It's not a small thing. It's not a silly mistake. It's a conceptual mistake that costed you this question. Okay. All right. Now let's take a look at statement 2. A by B is less than 1. Can I say that A is less than B from this statement? Can I say that? Can I say A is less than B? No. Why not? There are some people who are saying yes. Unknown sign of B, absolutely yes. I don't know whether B is a positive number or not. Okay. It could be a negative number. If it is a negative number, then if I multiply both sides by a negative number, the sign of the inequality will change. Okay. So case 1 could be that B is a positive number. Case 2 could be that B is a negative number, right? If B is a positive number, then A is less than B. So then all I'm doing is A moving B to the other side. If B is a negative number, then I have to change the sign of the inequality. So what I end up getting is A is greater than B. Okay. So again, I don't know. The statement 2 is not sufficient. Okay. Which means that I need to combine the two statements. Now, when I combine the two statements, and for some reason, when I combine the two statements, what I end up getting is that A is less than B. The only situation, the only case in which both these statements will hold true is if A is less than B. So the correct answer here is choice C. Okay, so now tell me, only about 20% of the class selected the correct answer. So tell me, which step did you falter at? What are you going to put in your error log? Why did you answer this question incorrectly? Concept issue. What concept issue? You have to be very specific when you're putting your error log. B can be positive. 0 needs to be taken into consideration. When you say 0 needs to, okay, you mean the non-negative part, okay. Okay, all right, good. All right, now question number 9, I want you to solve this question on your own later on, okay. I'm not going to solve this question right now. Again, it is along the same lines as question number 8, but I want you to make sure that you do the right kind of revision and then you come and solve question number 9, okay. Now again, what I want you guys to take away from this session is that apart from the specific learnings that you've had, just understand GMAT Quant is very easy to master, okay. What you have to focus on is you focus on learning the right things, okay, and learning the right way. Regardless of what your starting score is, you can get to your target score by making sure that you are learning the concepts the right way, by making sure that you are focusing on the right things, that you're taking the feedback very seriously, okay. Now this first success story is for people who are good in quant, who know that, okay, quant is something that they can handle very easily, okay. Krish, and you should look at his verified review on GMAT Club, had always done well in quant, but he was really stumped by the GMAT, okay. He constantly faltered while answering questions, falling in familiar traps, right. Frustrated with the lack of progress, he decided to change his approach and he started following a methodical approach, and he changed his approach, for example, for DS questions completely. And after making these changes, he was able to improve his quant score to Q51 which is the highest possible, and he ended up scoring a 740 on the test. Okay. Leonardo, this story is for someone who had not been comfortable with GMAT Quant, and he was stuck at Q45 despite trying really hard. He needed a quant score, a high quant score, because he wanted to apply to finance-based schools, okay, such as NYU, Wharton. Now, to improve beyond Q45, Leo adopted a methodical approach. He started focusing on constraints, okay, stuff that we talk about in this session quite a bit. He started showing his work on paper. Once he had the approach right, he made extensive use of quant scholaranium to isolate the areas that he needed to improve, and that's something which I urge all of you to do. Once you have built your basics, once you've gone through the course, utilize quant scholaranium as a tool to identify, okay, where is it that you need to focus your energy on, okay? And then he used the custom quizzing feature to ensure that he actually improved, right? So, and again, I would really suggest that you go through the easy and medium questions in quant scholaranium, because again, the hard and the very hard are required for people who are trying to get to a Q51. But if your target score is Q50, Q49, I would say that even if you focus on the easy and the medium questions in quant scholaranium, you will be good. Okay. And again, what Leonardo did was he utilized the custom quizzing feature to make sure that he had actually improved. And because of his good quant score, an excellent verbal score, he actually did get admits to Stern, Wharton, and Tepper. And again, that's the power of learning the right way. I mean, you end up realizing your dreams a lot better, right? I mean, had Leonardo not utilized the quant course in the right manner, had he not changed his studying habits the right way, he may not have been able to realize his dream of getting into these finance focused schools. Okay, so again, if you always have to keep the end goal in mind. What is my end goal? My end goal is to get into the B school of my choice, which means that I need to get the right GMAT score, the optimum GMAT score. And if I actually get a high GMAT score, I also stand the chance of getting those scholarships. Okay. Now, this third success story is of an individual who was extremely weak in quant. His starting score was Q30, which is a 20 percentile score. Mazibar, and that's his BTG forum name, spent a ton of time reading quant books, but he was not able to improve. He benefited from the progressive learning architecture at e-GMAT, in which he was able to cement his basics before taking on difficult questions. And in case his basics were not strong enough, he was given appropriate feedback. And ultimately, he was able to improve to Q45. And again, the starting points and the ending points of students can be different, right? In the previous case, Leonardo started off with Q45, right? His journey was very different from Mazibar's journey. Mazibar started from a very low score of Q30, but look at a 15-point difference. That's a substantial difference. Again, the thing is, you have to realize what your starting point is, and come up with that personalized study plan for yourself. Guillermo's story is an amazing story of an individual who had an extremely strong determination to study at the top B schools. And again, if you notice, all of these students had that passion. They wanted to get into those B schools, and that passion is what drives your power, your journey. Okay. He started at Q38, which coincidentally is a 38 percentile on GMAT Quant. He realized that he needed a stellar quant score to get an admit from Wharton and GSB Chicago. And the only way to improve from such a low score was to truly focus on learning, which he did using the video lessons. He was short on time, so he utilized analytics in quant scholaranium to isolate the areas where he needed most help. And again, that's what you do. GMAT as a test is a very modular test, right? You have 5 subsectional abilities that give you your GMAT score out of 800, and you can optimize on those 5. You can actually figure out, okay, where do I need to focus my energy on? Where do I get the most worth of my time? Which section do I focus on to make sure that which sections do I focus on to make sure that I can get to my target GMAT score in the most efficient manner? And that's something which we teach you through the personalized study plan that we have, right? So again, you take the Sigma X mock test, you figure out what your starting percentiles are in each of the 5 subsections. You utilize that information to figure out what your personalized study plan should be based on your understanding of what your skill set is. Okay, so again, preparing for GMAT should not be that black box wherein you keep putting in the effort only to realize at the end what your GMAT score is. It needs to be a journey which has those quantifiable milestones, and that's what you get through the e-GMAT course. Okay. And that's why when people say, okay, how long will it take for me to prepare? The answer really depends on you, what your goals are, what your starting points are, right? So that's why you can't really have a cookie cutter study plan which works for everyone, because then that plan is not really something that will work for everyone, really. Okay, so you need to have your own personalized study plan. And I know that I deviated a little bit from the quant focus here, but I just want to make sure, because quite a few of you are just starting off your preparation, I want to make sure that you prepare the right way. Okay. All right. So yeah. So again, Guillermo, he utilized quant scholaranium to make sure that he focuses on the areas where he was weak in, and ultimately he was able to get to a Q50. So really speaking, to ace GMAT quant, you need to focus on learning and adopting good habits. And as soon as you do that, you will realize that studying is going to become fun. You are going to get the feedback from the system that you can implement as corrective actions. You get that positive feedback from the system that continues to drive you to actually go forward. Okay. So again, as you're preparing, make sure that you get 200% clarity in the concepts. Make sure that you actively read the question statement and you solve questions in a step-by-step manner. Don't look for shortcuts, because those won't work. Okay, and trust the test maker. He's not going to throw anything at you that you're not skilled enough to solve. And believe in your skills. That's very, very important. Believing in your skills is so very important, because again, you have to realize that you have everything in your arsenal to solve any problem that GMAT throws at you. Okay, so as next steps, log into your free trial account if you're not an e-GMAT student as yet, and go through these files. If you are an e-GMAT student, go through algebra if that's what is part of your study plan right now. Okay, all right. And again, there are practice questions in the PDF that I'm going to share with you, so definitely look at them. There are two additional practice questions in the packet, plus the 2 questions that we skipped in the session, because I wanted you guys to be more prepared to answer those questions. Okay. All right. So I'm going to change the pane now, and I'm going to share with you the PDF over here. And I would want you all to please give your rating. I would really appreciate your feedback as well. And here are some web links, the wavy line method and the algebra error log. Definitely take a look at both of them. I can also share with you, yes, I think that's about it. And I would appreciate your subjective feedback as well. Again, because we conduct these sessions routinely on a routine basis, we take your feedback very seriously so that we implement the feedback in our next sessions. All right then. All right, any questions right now? Thank you very much. I really appreciate your You've gone through the video and error log is not there. Now see, when we talk about error log, what we mean is we don't give you an Excel sheet. Okay, Excel sheet is something that you can create on your own, but we tell you, okay, what all aspects do you need to add in your error log, and that's very important. Okay, what kind of, why did you make a mistake? Why did you make a mistake? Because of conceptual issue, or did you make a mistake because of the process skill? Okay, so you need to so again, Excel sheet is something that you can create on your own, but it's really, what do you add in that Excel sheet? That is very important. Okay. All right then. Thank you very much, and I wish you all a very happy holidays. Happy New Year to everyone in advance, and Merry Christmas. And I will see you next year. And I wish you all the very best. And let me know how we can help you. Send me an email at payal@e-gmat.com if you have any questions. We have our GMAT strategy experts on standby responding to your questions and making sure that you're working in the right manner and you're preparing in the right manner. Okay, so all right, just feel free to give us as much information as you can so that we can guide you accordingly. All right, okay then, thank you very much and good luck. Bye bye.